An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older and know what time it is know it's just business.
Yeah. It's your host, Gabe Morales. Greetings and welcome back, warriors, to borrow a phrase from another channel. If you haven't checked out Hector Bravo's channel, That Prison Guard, he puts out a lot of good content. I don't know where this guy finds the energy. Sometimes he gets up at 0 dark 30. Guess he still thinks he's in the army, burning that midnight oil, putting out videos. But hey, keep on doing a good job there, Hector. We've been covering the G last names. And today I'll start off with Joe Goober, aka Evil Govey, who was out of La Habra, which is a city in Orange County, California. Understand that he was an Aryan Brotherhood member and had family very much involved in the drug business, which also involved dealing with Nazi lowriders and Public Enemy number 1. When he had C number 74858. I recall that he was in the trial when Boxer Enriquez and Benjamin Topo Peters were being charged for incidents that happened in the LA County Jail. This is the same Joseph Martin Govey of Santa Maria, who the ABs are said to have killed and dumped near a Napomo golf course located near San Luis Obispo. Joe Govey had a long rap sheet consisting of multiple strikes on his record and jail or prison trips in 1983, 1985, 1990, 1992, 2002, 2007, 2009, and 2011, when he was indicted on yet another caper, this time for the murder of Marcel Isery of Huntington Beach in late 2011. Roby stated that the cops had a vendetta against him since he remained free and got off so many different cases and was known to be a methamphetamine user. Understand that they arrested him for major drug possession, but he got off again because his Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial and due process were violated. But it sounds like time finally caught up for Joe Govey. And in September 2020, his body was found and it had been chopped up into pieces. Detectives believe that suspects in that case dismembered Govey's body at a home in Santa Maria before they disposed of it in Napomo. There was a Matthew, aka Little Matt, aka Shotgun Granger, out of Sacramento. I mentioned him in the last video as assisting Scott Fountain in killing BOP officer Spikerman at Oxford on January 29, 1984. Understand that Granger did some time in the YA in the early 70s through mid 70s. And Aisha was housed at Preston Youth Correctional Facility in 1976, but had paroled by 1979. It then showed that he was sent to the BOP under number 33617-019, where, like I said, he was involved in the homicide of Officer Spikerman. I then showed he also was involved in a murder at Leavenworth in 1995 and was given life, but unbelievably, I show that he is currently housed at the SeaTac facility just south of Seattle in a residential reentry management field office. So they may be planning on releasing this guy one day soon. I show that Matt Granger is currently 67 years old. Speaking of the Seattle, Washington area, I show another individual with connections to Kent, Washington, which is a suburb just south of Seattle, an individual named John Frank Grant, who I show was an AB member at Lompoc in the late 1970s, under BOP number 13908-086. And I show that he did a homicide for the AB while housed there. But I show was released in December of 1984. So may have gotten off on that hit. There was a Ronald Gray, who I show was out of Oakland, or at least he lived there in the mid-1950s. I show he did YA time in 1960 and was housed at DBI, which was often used for incorrigible youth they couldn't deal with in the Youth Authority in 1961. I show he was popped on a dope case in 1964 and another dope case in 1966 where he was sent to CRC Norco. Then show he came back on a firearms charge in 1968 under B number 1581. Then show he paroled in 1969 but came back on a robbery beef in 1970 with a new B number of 14062. Then show he paroled in 1975 but then came back into custody at the California Medical Facility at Vacaville in 1986 under D number 32074. I then showed that he was popped on a bank robbery in 1989 and was housed at Leavenworth and later on at Victorville in the year 2006, but had been released by 2008. I show there was a Richard Fingers Green out of Stockton. I show he was at least an AB associate in the 1980s under C number 85453. Then show that he was popped on a robbery beef in 87 and housed at Folsom in 1989. Then show he was released on that C number but came back into custody under P numbers in Paul 92306. And that show is currently housed at the California Institution for Men in Chino. Richard Green is 71 years of age. There was the infamous John Greshner, who was actually out of Minnesota, but also had ties to Santa Rosa, California, which is an area where Barry Mills is from. It just so happens that Mills and Greshner at first were very strong allies, but then had a falling out. I show that Greshner was first picked up for a robbery in 1968 in Minnesota, but then had attempted escape in April 1970. He then had another escape attempt in July of 1972, but this time was successful. And I understand that he was involved in multiple robberies when he was on the run. He was captured a few days later, but then ended up holding a guard hostage in October of 1972. He did the same thing in September 1973, but this time held 3 guards hostage. This guy was a holy terror. He then had an attempted escape while on transport in 1976, when he was sent to USP Marion, which at the time was the most secure prison in the BOP. But Greshner was not done yet. I show he had attempted kidnapping and attempted murder in December 1976 and killed John Logan, who was an Aryan Brotherhood member who had fell out of favor. BOP investigative reports show that John Greshner stabbed John Logan, BOP number 87870-132 at USP Marion on November 18, 1979. I show then he was housed at Springfield, but was returned to Marion in 1981 and was at Leavenworth in October 1983 when he killed Rhino Anderson, who I mentioned in the very first video, at Leavenworth Prison in October of 1983. BOP documentation indicates that John Greshner and Ronnie Creswell stabbed Anderson over 60 times.
If you bring the ruthlessness and extreme violence to a situation 1 or 2 times, you don't have to do it no more. The message gets out. If you're in an environment that's a violent environment, sometimes to make a social statement, to make your presence known, you have to be very violent. It's just all there is to it. And sometimes you bring that type of ruthlessness. If you bring the ruthlessness and extreme violence to a situation 1 or 2 times, you don't have to do it no more. Why make an enemy? Why move on somebody and leave your enemy alive so he can come back around and get you or get yours or get your family or whatever? You don't do that. If it's serious enough to move on them, you take them out. And then you do it in such a way where it's so vicious that everybody, even in a violent environment, takes notice. They say, wow, you know, and they step back and they say, don't mess with them because you'll get that. I mean, that's how you control the environments. Then once you do that and people understand it, then you can get down to business. That's how you do it.
Like I said, he was very close to Aryan Brotherhood shot caller Barry Mills, and I believe that Mills, TDB, and Greshner all sat on the commission at one time. But evidently, he didn't like the way they sometimes did business and ended up dropping out of the gang and has been on multiple specials talking about his time in the Aryan Brotherhood. For more on John Greshner, Police and Fire did an excellent episode on all his escapes and escapades. There is a James, a.k.a. Jimmy Foo Griffin, who was out of Fresno. I show that he was popped for assault with a deadly weapon in 1968 when he was given A numbers in Alpha 70192. And I show he was affiliated with the ABs by at least the early 1970s. when he was housed at Folsom State Prison. I show he paroled in 1971, but then returned on a dope case later that year, and paroled in 1976 when I lost track of him. There was a Michael J. Griffin, who also used an AKA of John Slocum, but he is not the same as Ronald Slocum, who had a different CDC number and was born on July 1st, 1946. I show Michael Griffin was locked up in the Youth Authority in 1967 and housed at DVI in 1969 when he had B number 38772. I show he was released on that, but then got popped over in Salt Lake City in the late 1970s and early 80s. His record then showed he was arrested in Arizona during the 1980s and even did some time in New York DOC in 1983. He also was spotted, here we go again, in Tacoma, Washington in 1987, which was the year I started working at New Folsom State Prison. But I'm unsure what happened to him after that. There was Robert Blinky Griffin. Here's another one that I probably can do an entire episode on. Perhaps I will do that. Somebody suggests I do an episode on the war of Blinky versus Wendell Blue Norris. Now that might be a good one. I don't think that one's been done before. I usually try to stay away from repeating too much information you guys can find on other channels that probably have a lot more time to burn than me. Like I said, it takes a lot of time to create these videos, anywhere from 15 to 20 hours for just one quality episode. I show that Blinky is out of Orange County and very early in life was looked to as being a leader amongst the whites. He may have even had an A number, but the first number, CDC number I show is B as in Bravo, 26484. As I stated earlier, Griffin was involved in cutting the throat of T-Bone Gibson, and Junior Stein stabbed him in the back, killing him. I understand this occurred on October 13, 1980, at CIM in Chino. I understand in February of 1982 that Griffin, along with John Youngster Stinson, Tricky Ricky Turflinger, Ronald Slocum, and Eddie Burnett, among others, formed a 12-man council to oversee the Aryan Brotherhood's affairs within the state system. From this council then came a three-man commission consisting of Griffin, Slocum, and Burnett. This did not go over well with Blue Norris, who was considered another leader, along with allies like New York Crane at Folsom Prison, and is one of the main reasons why Blue and Blinky soon went to war with each other. Blinky was very good at using females to smuggle in drugs to prison, including his future wife, Pamela Dowden Griffin. It is my understanding that Griffin was on the commission when the ABs ordered Steve Barnes' dad, Richard Barnes, to be killed, which was another event that led to a lot of ABs dropping out of the organization. Blinky was named in the 2002 RICO indictment, but I believe was kept in CDC, where even though he appealed that he had retired from the organization, those claims fell on deaf ears, and I understand he died in custody, having spent much of his life in 23-hour lockdowns. There was Elliot Rascal Grizzle, who I understand originally from San Luis Obispo. I show that he was popped with assault with a deadly weapon in 1991 and given H number, as in Henry, 10106. Understand that he was sponsored in the AB by John Youngster Stinson and was housed for many years at Pelican Bay. I show that he was let out of custody but returned on a voluntary manslaughter charge in 2015, as well as a homicide in the year 2017, whereby he did a home invasion robbery in San Diego County and ended up killing one of the occupants. Evidently, Grizzle and his crew had tied up and robbed two residents, demanding money from them, when a Brent Alder entered the home, and he was shot to death outside. Understand that Grizzle got 159 years in that case, but sued San Diego County while he is housed in solitary confinement at the San Diego County Jail. I show that he is currently housed at the Sierra Conservation Center. I show a Jeffrey, aka Active Guess, out of Fresno, who was part of that Fresnet case started in the year 2020, but I believe has either been released or is still being held at the Fresno County Jail, because I currently don't show him being in CDC custody. I show a Fontana Mike Gilly, who is an ABN member at San Quentin in the 1970s under B number 5757. I then show that he was shipped out to Oregon State Penitentiary, so may have joined the host of Valhalla when CDC shipped a lot of those guys out. That was Steve Kessler's group, and they were involved in a riot there in 1971, whereby I bet they wish they had sent all those guys back. And that might have been their motive for starting the riot anyway. I worked in classification for over 20 years, so know it's very common for convicts to manipulate the system and act up until they get to where they want to be housed. But that is the nature of the business. And before we end, He was not an Aryan Brotherhood member, however, the AB was involved, so I thought I'd give a brief mention of John the Teflon Don Gotti, who, after beating multiple cases in New York City, finally was convicted by the feds, and in July of 1996 had been involved in a fight in Marion with D.C. black leader Walter Johnson. Gotti then offered to pay the Aryan Brotherhood to murder Johnson. And Johnson was in fact assaulted by a dirty white boy named Michael Wagner on orders of AB leader David Sahakian. Usually the dirty white boys will support the AB in the federal system. But evidently, Gotti was not paying up as much as the AB demanded. Walter Johnson didn't want to take a chance and win to protect custody anyways. And John Gotti died in June of 2002. And so, that's all I have for the G last names. I hope you have viewed these episodes as being pretty good and that you continue watching and supporting this channel. Don't forget to tell your friends and don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for gangsters, cops, and politicians. An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am, and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older know what time it is, man. It's just business.
Yeah.